Well, this is basically a response video to Matt. He seems interested in some feedback, and there really isn't much conversation going on about anything important or interesting lately. Yeah, the whole idea of integrating, the different parts of yourself into some sort of plan for living is it's tricky business. Um, I've made a mess of it, frankly. But I think you really have to make a decision early on. You have to figure this part out, that you really can't go with what you feel. You really have to live life. Ultimately, there has to be a framework, a plan um, that kind of protects you from making mistakes, where there's some thoughtfulness built into your way of life. Um, so recklessness and whim doesn't sabotage you, and you don't get sabotaged by your own feelings, your own need to emotionally find comfort or satisfaction or acceptance, or all this baggage. I certainly could have used some perspective early on in life, just to know that it's really not about all this emotional crap. In the end, your life is going to be what you do. It's going to be defined as either a service to society, the universe, or just another liability, just another animal that consumed and piled up some shit, and that's all they did. They converted, you know, energy, but they didn't convert it in any productive way. They didn't. It's like an engine not connected to anything. It just spins and it just burns gas, but it doesn't accomplish anything. It just makes noise and pollutes the air, and that's it. And so you're ultimately faced with the questions. The first thing you really want to do is you want to live a productive life. And so you ask your smartest brain, the best parts of you, well, how do you do that? And unfortunately, it's not like it's not a perfect science. It's not a developed science. We can't know all the permutations. It might be possible for me to go out in the backyard and cut down a tree and prevent World War IV. We just don't know. It's all this subtlety that's built into life, all this nuance, all this, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We can't, I've used this analogy before, but I'll throw it in there real quick. There's people, good-hearted people, who care about whales and say, yes, let's save the whales. But in the end, are they accomplishing anything? Because if you save the whales, then we will just farm the whales. We will then, cull from their herd every year a certain number of whales, and so they will live a more horrific life. We will save them from extinction, and we will give them nothing. We will give them a life as a servant to our needs and our desires and our will. And we have that here in this state with deer population. Way too many deers. And there's the one side, there's people who just, oh yeah, well, don't slaughter the deers, and I'm by nature one of those people. But realistically, we're not doing the deer any favor by keeping them around, because they overpopulate, and then they just become this huge liability. It causes disease here, and 30,000-40,000 cars are smashed up a year. Just, it's a mess. And no one will effectively deal with it. The sadistic, hunters, they figure out a way so they can have their fun nice and easy. They can sit in a couch and shoot a deer because they don't have to do any work anymore to hunt. And society says that's accomplishing something, and no one's dealing with the problem. It just gets worse and worse and worse. The population just grows and grows, and it's just stupid. Well, anyway, so my point is there's, even that science can't get done right. And in life, trying to build a good life, where's the architectural tools? What do we know? And we don't know a hell of a lot. But I think we can know, and the thing we'll just argue about is that there's a part of our brain that's going to be better at figuring this out than the other part. I mean, if we go with our feelings, you just can't invest your whole life in your feelings, because your feelings are basically going to be selfish. They're basically, you'll end up constructing a fantasy that satisfies your needs, your personal needs, and that's not what you're trying to do. I mean, you're not going to you're not going to come up with a good design that way. If you're an architect, if I go to an architect, I don't want him to draw me what he feels. I want him to use engineering science so the building doesn't fall down. So in the end, it does what the specifications say it has to do. And the specifications for good life are there. I mean, we might not know them all, but we can certainly discern a good deal of them. We know the productivity part. We know we have to accomplish something with our life and not just spend it jerking off or satisfying, petting ourselves all throughout our whole life. That doesn't accomplish anything. Might make you a happy human, but it doesn't make you worth the trouble. I mean, you have to do a little better than that, and that's the planning part. It gets tricky, because you have to sort of deliberately say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to, devote so much of my life to keeping myself satisfied and comfortable, so I can live, so I can survive this thing we call life. I have to make myself I have to achieve this minimum level of comfort. And there's two ways of doing that. I mean, either redesign your emotional self, your need base, so you don't need as much, so you're easier to satisfy. You live a little while as a homeless person, you realize how much you took for granted, and you can be happy with a lot less. So, I mean, psychologically, we can work on ourselves a little. But whatever, even if you don't do that, there's always, you just decide. You have to make a decision that, yeah, there's so much of your life you're going to devote to serving you. And then there's this other part that's going to be practical and say, okay, well, I have to find a job that's satisfying, that, gives me some satisfaction. But it's also, it seems only logical to try to find one that satisfies that other need, is to be productive. I mean, you don't want to have a job where all you're doing is stealing or cheating or lying or bullshitting. I mean, you want to actually accomplish something with that life. You want to build something with it, that job, that way you survive in this society. And another part of the equation is in this whole planning thing is it's, there's really no, power is important. You really have to get yourself in a position of power. This was a big failure in my life, was not realizing that there's no point in understanding, there's no point in knowing, there's no point in having empathy, there's no point in building character in yourself if you have no power to do anything with it. And so you sort of, there's this horrible line, this horrible walk you got to walk, where you actually have to be one of them to destroy them. It's like you have to be part of the thing before you're in a position to do anything about the thing. It's like you have to get up close and personal with the monster before you can start, ripping pieces off of the monster. And it's, I don't know, I don't have answers to those kind of questions, but I'm just saying there's a blueprint out there. We can do the best we can to figure out the rules of this game. And I'm just saying what the rules of the game are, yeah, you really can't accomplish much if you are powerless. I mean, if you have no practical position to work with to accomplish something, well, then you're not, it's going to be a lot harder road. And I mean, so all this stuff has to go into the living of a life, and it's a discussion nobody's having. I mean, I at least credit you for asking these questions, because so few people are. It's all about getting and having, and it's I don't even, the way people are thinking is just so it's so thin. It's just so, hate this. It's one sentence. I hate you. Fuck you. Way to go, dude. It's all this superficial bullshit talk. It's nothing that means anything. No real discussion about anything real. So, time's up.